Hello, my name is Addison Pruitt, and this is my BDAN 420 final project. We are predicting customer responses to bank marketing campaigns, just trying to use data to optimize direct marketing strategies and getting the most out of our resources. So I just wanted to start out with a quick fact because I didn't know this at all, but over 80% of the marketing campaigns usually fail to reach the correct audience. So we're just sending out all this marketing and using all these resources for it to not reach the correct people to get the results that we want. So just seeing that only 20% of the marketing will actually be successful, just imagine that impact if we could predict who would respond before even launching that marketing campaign, and just how much success we could get if we could figure out who we need to be marketing to rather than just blindly marketing to everyone. So the purpose of this project and analysis was to develop a predictive model that would forecast customer responses to marketing campaigns. This would just enable this bank to optimize resource allocation and also just improve the strategies for their engagements with new or existing customers. So some context behind it. A direct marketing campaign can benefit from the targeted outreach based on the customer's likelihood to respond. So the bank isn't just sitting there and constantly reaching out to customers who might not have any likelihood of responding. Trying to find a target customer for them to reach out to just enables them to have a higher likelihood of success. So just leveraging off of this historical data to produce and predict future responses just allows them to use less resources with a higher success rate. So analyzing this data set allows us to have a more personalized marketing strategy in order to engage with more likely to participate customers. So in this data set, we'll focus on the customer's demographics and historical marketing data from the past. We'll try 3 different predictive models, trying to find the best fit for this data and for this bank, just to be the most successful. So just looking at this data, there are just some key features. So there's 20 types of variables in this data set that all kind of fit into some different categories. So for customer demographics, we have age, job, marital status, and the education of the customer. Financial status category is credit in default, if they have a housing loan or a personal loan. And then we also have the communication details. So what the contact type was, whether that was a telephone or some other type of communication. The month of the last contact, so what month that was in, and then the day of the week that the last contact was on. Whether it was a Monday or a Friday, can change different responses. Number of times that the customer was contacted during that campaign was also recorded. And then we have marketing history, so days since the last contact, and the number of previous contacts and the outcome of the previous contacts. Then we also have another category of economic indicators, so employment, customer price index, the customer confidence index, and then number of employees. And then our target variable for this data set is if the client subscribed to the term deposit. That's what we were trying to predict, so that way we know how to predict in the future. So the data set size was about 41,118 customer records. And we kind of just needed to assess the data and exclude variables. I decided to exclude variables such as housing, if they had a loan, if they had a housing loan or a personal loan, and if how many days it had been since the last contact. I just felt like it had minimal contribution to the performance of the model, and so I just excluded them. And then when creating the model before actually testing it, I did a 70% training data, and then to test it, I used 30% of the data for the model. So that's kind of the setup, and then we'll kind of go into what were important variables and why next. So looking at the different variables, I'm not going to go into specific detail about every single one, but just splitting it into 4 different categories and talking about them that way is kind of how I'll go about it. So for customer demographics, these variables are critical for understanding the who of the predictive model. They reflect the individual's financial priorities, their stability, constraints, just helping to fix the marketing campaign to customers with the same demographics, just to be able to identify who is most likely to respond positively and want those term deposits. So just for an example, older clients with a stable job and no housing or personal loans may have a greater income, and therefore they might want to invest in term deposits rather than younger clients with more personal or housing loans that don't have that income to invest like that. Campaign interaction, so variables such as the contact type, month, and day of the week, they all provide insights into the when and how of the bank's outreach efforts. So timing and method of communication seem to have a significant effect on the engagement of whether or not they would like a term deposit or not. Customers might be more responsive to calls on certain days of the week or specific months, just dependent on what is going on at that time. And if they're contacted via mobile during a holiday season, that can be a little bit different of a behavior compared to just a regular routine weekday. Then kind of looking at the campaign metrics, the variable campaign, like previous outcomes and ways of contact, just reveal historical information about prior engagements, and they just kind of highlight patterns in customers' behaviors just to help even more refine these predictions by showing which clients are more receptive and just trying to get repeated behaviors and interactions from previous times to predict for the future. And then finally, our social and economic context types of variables. These are just kind of addressing the why behind the client's decisions. As we look at the different economic and social variables, we can kind of see the trends that influence financial decision making, and during periods of high consumer confidence or low interest rates, we can see different outcomes of whether or not the client wants the term deposit as an attractive investment or would rather not take it at all. So after going through and understanding the variables in the data set, I just went through and made sure that the data was clean, and I changed any nominal variables to numerical and changed the target variable y from nominal to binomial for whenever I needed to use it later in the model. And then I tried 2 models before using the ROC comparison operator to see what the accuracy would be for those. So for when I used logistic regression, that was at 86.76% accuracy, which is okay, but we always want to be better than that. So I tried cross-validation, and that was 87%. accuracy, which is a little bit better. So next we just had to see what type of model would be even better, or if that was the best we can get. Here I just wanted to include the results from the logistic regression and the cross-validation results. So as you can see, this is the confusion matrix for both of them. You can see the accuracy percentages in both, and the true positives and true negatives, and then the false positives and false negatives are also included on this. So this just gives us a little bit more details as to how the models perform. So here's the ROC comparison chart. I compared 5 different models, and what we're looking for is the model that has the closest line to that top left corner, where it's the y-axis is 1. So that's where I found that it was the decision tree. And then every other model was about in the same line, but the decision tree was way closer than the others. So I decided to try that one. So now that I've kind of introduced what types of models I'll use in this analysis, I just wanted to compare the 3 main ones that I did use. So kind of some strengths and limitations of them, and then the performance that they had in this model. For logistic regression, it's really simple and easy to use, but it's not always the best when capturing complex patterns, so it can kind of miss some things. As far as this model, it performed like a moderate accuracy, but compared to the other 2, it was the least effective. For the cross-validation model, this is usually really good with testing different subsets of data, but it's not a standalone model. It's more just a fine-tune of the other models. So performance-wise, it was in the middle compared to logistic regression and decision tree. And then we have decision tree, which is highly interpretable and visual. But overall, it had the highest accuracy compared to the other 2 models. And as we saw in the ROC chart, was the better fit than the other 5. So we tried this one. So here I just kind of wanted to further explain why I chose the decision tree. It just has a very high accuracy. It was 90.36%, which is 3% more than cross-validation and even more than 3% of logistic regression. So it has a higher reliability rate in predicting those customer responses. Also, it has a higher ability to correctly identify customers likely to respond, making it ideal for maximizing that campaign success rate that we talked about earlier. And it's just really easy to interpret. Marketers can easily follow the tree to understand how each variable, such as age, job type, or past outcomes influence those predictions. So it's just easier to justify the model decisions. And also, the decision tree model captures complex and nonlinear interactions, which is a lot better than logistic regression, for example, which is very simple and linear relationships, really only. It just allows for a better adaptation to the complexity of customer behavior. And then here I added the decision tree results, the confusion matrix from that model. So we can see the accuracy is 90.36, and then we can also see the true positives and true negatives, and also the false positives and false negatives from this model. So now that we've kind of talked about why the decision tree was the best model for this bank's marketing campaign, I want to talk about how we could integrate this into the bank's operations. So first, just a CRM system, just so that way the bank could assess customers' response likelihood before even reaching out to them and deciding in real time how much effort the bank should put into their marketing for each customer based on their factors and previous behaviors from customers like them. And then we can also have more customized marketing campaigns just to tailor those promotions and advertisements using the insights from the decision tree. And finally, we could have more real-time applications just that would update the customer data in real time, and then that way we can provide immediate predictions on the likelihood of respondents and just creating more opportunities to have more customers. So kind of wrapping up, I wanted to touch on the potential impact of this model on marketing campaigns for this bank. So first, just the improved targeting. This model would allow us to identify customers with a higher probability of wanting to interact and subscribe to the term deposits. And so that just allows us to focus our marketing efforts on the individuals that are more likely to respond, which just helps us to also reduce wasted resources on those customers that are less likely to respond, and so we can be more cost effective. And then thirdly, just enhancing personalization. We can use this model to have a more customized marketing strategy. This just improves customer satisfaction and engagement as well. And then finally, this model can also help us increase our ROI by leveraging the predictions. The campaign can achieve a higher effectiveness and have better financial outcomes as well. It reduces the costs and it increases response rates. I also just kind of want to talk about how we can have more broader implications. So just the scalability of this model, it can be applied across various customers, datas, and marketing channels. So it's very versatile. It also allows us to differentiate between high value customers and first time buyers, just allowing us to be creating that more tailored and personalized marketing strategy for each different group. And it allows us to create different marketing strategies for each. So we could do an email campaign or a social media advertisement, or even direct mail. And it just allows for real-time adaptation. So as the customer data evolves and changes, as we all do, the model can remain dynamic and always ensure accurate predictions and responses as the customers change, come, and go. So in conclusion, I just kind of want to touch on the analysis and report as a whole. So our objective of this project was to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of a direct marketing campaign for a bank by developing a predictive model to identify customers that are most likely to respond. To do this, we used customers' data from Kaggle.com and evaluated multiple different models and selected the decision tree as its superior for its accuracy, interpretability, and sensitivity. So the results created the decision tree model, which demonstrated a 90.36% accuracy. And then that's just applicable as we can use the model and integrate it into a CRM system and create marketing campaigns that can be changed and personalized with real-time customer data and information. So the impact of this model is that it just promises a campaign ROI and improved resource allocation, and it also just builds a stronger customer relationship for the company. And then as we just move forward, I just wanted to emphasize the importance of monitoring the model and retraining it with new data and constantly trying to improve it as its performance, just so that way we can always be predicting the data in the best way possible. So this is my final project, and I just want to say thank you.